Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone. I would like to welcome you today to this Fireside chat with Dr. Mrouan العودي, and we're going to be talking about navigating the medical field or the medical profession, especially here in the US. Before we get started, I would like to give you a brief introduction about Aoisp and what we do. We'll introduce the speaker. We will then hear from the speaker and take any Q&A from the audience in the Zoom room or live on Facebook via commenting. But we prefer that you join the Zoom room if you can. The link is available on Facebook, and we will be sharing it across the presentation. Okay, so AAYSP, the American Association of Yemeni Students and Professionals, is a 501c3 organization, and we are an organization that promotes innovation and advancing the educational success of Yemeni Americans by networking, mentorship, advocacy, academic support, any community-based initiatives, and elimination of barriers to education. My name is Hisham Hussein, and I am the president of the organization. I have been with the national board for the past 2 years, and today we'll be hosting one of our professional of the months that we highlight on a monthly basis for the past year. And today we will be presenting with you Dr. Mrouan العودي. He was highlighted a few weeks ago in our professional of the month portfolio. Dr. Mrouan العودي spent his childhood years between Yemen and California. Before completing his high school in Yemen and earning top of his class credentials. After that, he earned a scholarship to go and study medical school in Cairo, in Egypt, which he went there and pursued that career despite the difficulties and challenges. He finished his bachelor's degree and moved on to completing his medical degree. But then he wanted to take it to the next step and pursue his dream in becoming a surgeon in the United States. So he moved to the United States in the past several years, and now he's completing his residency in New York. I don't want to go into details about his path to getting where he is right now. I want to give him a chance to present himself and give us a little bit of a brief background of how he got here. So Dr. Mrouan, please go ahead and start with a brief introduction, and then you can give us an overall view about your career and how to basically penetrate the medical school in the US and become a doctor.
أول حاجة شكرا جزيلا على الاستضافة. Thank you so much for having me in your monthly highlight of Yemeni professionals in the US. It's an honor to be able to reach out to young Yemenis that are trying to break into different professions, not just medical field. In general, you already gave a very good introduction about me and how I came up. In terms of medical school, it depends. The path that I took was me being an international medical graduate coming into the US. That's one path. The other path, which is for the Yemenis that are in the US and going to high school and then doing their bachelor's in the US, and how they can pursue medical training in medical school and then later on residencies. It's different. There are two paths. They're different, and I can tell you that there are so many paths to reach becoming a doctor in the US that I can't even say 10, 20. Everybody has a different path. There are people that graduate from abroad, come here, and then redo part of medical school. There are people that graduate from abroad, come here and go straight into residencies and finish their training. And there are the people that graduate from the US and they get their degrees and are able to join American medical schools, which allow them to pursue, postgraduate training and residency programs in different specialties, which are countless. That's third way. Fourth way is people that graduate from, they're with a bachelor's degree from a medical school in the US, from a university or a college in the US. And then after they do their MCATs and even, they have good CVs, but because it's so competitive, they apply to medical schools and end up not being accepted. Then some people think that's the dead end. It's not a dead end. There are other pathways. Some of them are to apply to Caribbean schools, some of them to go to other schools in Europe and be able to finish that medical degree in 4 to 5 years and be able to come back. Personally, in my situation, I wouldn't have done it any different. But if I had graduated high school in the US, I would have taken a different path. I see a lot of my colleagues, they go into a degree of science. They wanted to pursue medical school, but it's kind of like a long trip. It's not a short trip. It's a long trip that requires a lot of patience, a lot of dedication, and basically, you have to have your focus on it all the time, because you will have financial difficulties, you will have social difficulties, your family, your plans, whether you're going to get married, not married, both goes for both boys, guys and girls. And all of these things affect your decision making during the process of going into this profession. So if I had been here, I think that the best way for people that are going into that want to pursue medicine is to actually get a degree in nursing, physician assistant, something that will allow you to do some clinical, you will focus more in your undergrad in doing a lot of the basic things that you will need for medical school. So by the time you reach medical school, you have already went through a lot of the curriculum that you will go in medical school. So that will make you, excel during your medical school. And just in case, let's say that you went through your 4 years and became a nurse and ended up not wanting to finish another 4 years or another 8 years of training. So, you can just stop at that and continue to be a nurse. And the nurse is a very, very good job and very good lifestyle. That's the thing. There are a lot of specialties that can lead you into medicine, not just a bachelor's of science in molecular genetics or neuroscience or a degree. It depends if that's your interest and you wouldn't mind working in that field, for the rest of your life, then it's fine. But there are a lot of ways to avoid it and still have a career that can lead you into medicine at any point, not just necessarily after 4 years, maybe after 8 years, maybe after 10 years. You decide you wanted to still continue, you would be able to continue, and you would already have the knowledge for it. You wouldn't have to go through more studying, as in to get some of the pre-med. Basically here, when you go to, like, you can even do a bachelor's of engineering and decide you want to go to medical school. You will have to go do pre-medical classes for a year and a half, until you get those classes that you really need to be able to apply. And that's another pathway.
Marwan, if I may interrupt, I just wanted to see if you can share with us your journey. I know, like you said, there's multiple ways to reach this destination in the medical field. There's multiple paths, but there might be a lot of Yemenis who were in your shoes before, and they're coming from abroad, from Yemen or Egypt, just like you. So just from start to finish, kind of walk through your path.
So for my journey, I went to Yemen in the last year of high school. I was able to get, and I was able to get a scholarship. My scholarship had given me the chance to go to different countries. But for me, I knew that I wanted to end up in the US. I could have gone to Germany, I could have gone to different countries, but that would have made it more difficult for me to continue with my, with my postgraduate training. So, being that if I'm going to study in a language other than English, it's going to make it more difficult for me to catch up with the medical aspect in English. So I chose to go to Egypt, and it was it was very good. My university is very good in terms of teaching. There are, of course, there are challenges in terms like the challenges of the university itself, the challenges of the specialty itself, and then you just have to keep going. And I went there. Well, I had a friend, by the way. He's also here now. He did medical school in Egypt, and he ended up choosing a different path after he finished medical school. He chose to go into doing a doctorate degree, and he's doing a PhD right now. And he's a researcher in a very well-respected university in the US, and that's another path. For me, I finished my medical school. It takes about 6.5 years in Egypt, and then you have to do 1 year of obligatory training. So after I finished my medical school, I went and I did 1 year in Kuwait. While I was there, I had to do exams that will allow me to come to the US. These exams are basically called United States Medical Licensing Examinations. They're very extensive. They're, I would not say hard, but they're very hard to prepare for. The exam itself is not hard. It's actually just having the stamina, the proactivity and just dedication that you want to achieve something, and you will study those 7, 8, 10, 12 hours, whatever you have, those 2-3 hours, any minute. I can tell you, I studied for my exams while I was on planes, while I was in airports, while I was in, in everywhere. Whenever I have a chance, I will study for them, because postgraduate, you're not just studying as a student. You're studying while you're working, while you have a family, while you have to do a lot of things. So you have to have that, determination and go for it. After I finished 1 year in Kuwait, I was able to finish my the two exams that will allow me to come to the US, and a third one that has to be done here. Basically, it's the clinical skills. I did the basic science exam, and then the clinical knowledge exam, and I was able to get good scores in them. And then I passed my clinical skills exam over here, which was basically an exam of seeing how you interact with American patients, how language aspect, the clinical, thinking aspect, and also being able to do the documentation and all of those things. After I passed all of those, then it's a different. Just keep in mind that these United States medical licensing examinations, they're not just taken by international medical graduates. Even medical graduates from the US have to take them. That's why they're very difficult, and it's very difficult competition. You're competing, and a lot of hardworking, smart people are already in this field, and the people that make it into medical school in the US, they're usually very hardworking and very smart. So when you're graded in an average of the US national average, and that's why it becomes very difficult to get good scores and compete with these people. So after that, you have to go into a competition with all of the graduates that apply during your year, because you have a limited number of residency positions. You can't practice medicine in the US if you graduated, even if you're a Harvard graduate and you want to practice medicine, you can't practice medicine in the US unless you do residency, which is postgraduate training. So everybody applies through the same, it's called National Residency Matching Program. This program was created in the 50s. It's basically to give equal chances to everybody, to all the positions in the US. So what does that mean? So you can have connections, which are going to help you. You can have research, you can have scores, you can have everything. But we have to have all the programs in the US submit that they want residents. Once they submit to this, to this entity that they want residents, the resident will apply to the applicants will apply to this entity as the same way. So let's say there is a hospital A has 30 positions that they want to fill. They will go and tell this NRMP that they want 30 residents. 1,000 people will apply for those 30 positions, and the competition will be that hospital will look at all of those 1,000 applicants and will choose 30 from them. How many will they interview? It will depend. So let's say they will interview 100. If they were satisfied with 100, then that's it. They will rank those 100. Same thing for the applicants. They will go to multiple hospitals. So when I applied, I had to go to a lot of hospitals across a lot of states. Like I went to 12 states to and interviewed in different hospitals with different programs, and just to find that one place that that I will be able to finish my postgraduate training in. And then in the end, they rank me in their list and I rank them in my list. And this middle person, which is the NRMP, mixes and matches between the residents and the hospitals. Thank God I was able to match into into general surgery. Currently I'm training in New York in a hospital called Flushing Hospital Medical Center. I can tell you that it's definitely worth it. It's a difficult journey, and it requires a lot of patience and a lot of sacrifice on all levels, on your personal level, on a lot on the personal level, and in terms of your the only thing that you try to not sacrifice, nothing is worth sacrificing your health. So whenever you feel something is affecting your health, then you should stop and reevaluate. So personally, I'm very satisfied with what I have done in terms of all the sacrifices that I have done. I think that it's worth it, and it's towards a long-term goal that I am trying to achieve. And hopefully, my family, my friends, and the people around me will understand when I reach that point.
This is great. Dr. Marwan.
My journey. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to give a chance for you to speak in Arabic, because I know we have a number of parents who could be viewing us on Facebook Live. And after that, we can we can go into the Q&A. We have a good audience here in the room. Along with me today, I have Munder Gaber, who has helped me set up this session with you. So he's my co-host. I missed introducing him at the beginning. As well as we have Mohammed Al-Riyashi. He's a potential doctor. He is completing his medical school, and he's actually in the board of AAYSP. So I'm happy to have Mohammed Al-Riyashi and Munder Gaber along with me here on this session to help drive the conversation. But before we start the conversation and open the mic for the attendees here in the room, and also anybody commenting on Facebook, if you can just give us a brief introduction in Arabic of what it takes to become a doctor in the US, whether you have started your journey abroad or if you are a student here. We just want to clarify to the parents that the medical school journey is a long journey, and some people stop going into that career because of the length of the journey. So we just want to give them perspective, if you don't mind.
تعقيب يا دكتور مروان، تعقيب على كلام هشام. مدى احنا بنقلب بالعربي نستمتع بكل محطة. يعني أول شيء بدراستك في مصر بعد الثانوية، أنت طحتوها، يعني حصلت سكولرشيب يعني ما شاء الله، بس غيرك اللي بدون سكولرشيبس يعني كيف إيش درست بالبكالوريوس، وإيش رحت سويت بالكويت، والاختبارات اللي اختبرتها في أمريكا لما رجعت أمريكا.
أوكي. والله شوف، أنا بعد ما تخرجت من الثانوية العامة رحت مصر. في مصر الدراسة 6 سنوات ونص كانت. الذي ما فيش معه منحة برضه بيقدر إنه يدخل جامعة عادي، يعني أهم حاجة يكون عنده معدل كويس في الثانوية وبيقدر يدخل جامعة. وتقدر إنك تدرس في أي دولة، وهذه ميزة أمريكا إنها بتسمح لك ما دام إنك تعمل الامتحانات المطلوبة تقدر إنك تجي لها من أي دولة. ما في فرق. تخرجت من جامعة صنعاء، تخرجت من جامعة دمار، امتحنت امتحاناتك، أهم حاجة إنها مقبولة في جهة معينة في أمريكا التي بتقبل الجامعات. فأغلب الجامعات الحكومية حتى اليمنية مقبولة. مقبولة إلى حد 2015، هذا آخر ما كان عندي، يعني الخريجين اللي لحد سنة 2015. ما بعد 2015 يعني الآن في لخبطة شوية، يعني في صعوبات، لكن لا زال في جهات معينة اللي الواحد يقدر إنه يتأكد منها على هذا الشيء. ففي مصر الدراسة بتنقسم 3 سنوات، زي ما تقول علوم أساسية، 3 سنوات علوم كلينيكية. العلوم الكلينيكية يعني تقدر تقول نحن بس نمشي في المستشفى، نتعلم من المرضى يعني مباشرة، مش بس في المعامل ويعني في المشرحة وفي الحاجات هذه. لا خلاص، بتدخل عمليات وتتعلم يعني في المرور مع الدكاترة، وبتمشي من امتحان لامتحان لحد ما بتخلص يعني. بعد ما خلصت احنا مطلوب مننا سنة امتياز، تقدر تقول عليها زي ما هنا في أمريكا. أنا تكلمت أول بالإنجليزي إنه حتى خريج هارفارد ما يقدرش إنه هو يمارس طب بدون ما يعمل تدريب بعد الدراسة. ففي الدول العربية بيعملوا سنة امتياز. أنا شخصياً كنت يعني تنقلت، يعني كنت رايح أعملها في اليمن، بس لما قامت الحرب يعني لظروف معينة قلت إن أنا بحاول إن أنا أخرج بحيث إن أنا أخلص امتحاناتي يعني، ولقيت فرصة إن أنا أروح الكويت. فرحت الكويت، قدمت على سنة هذه في الكويت، وكان الجميل فيها انها في الكويت زي ما تقول يحملك مسؤوليه من الاول، يمسكك شغل كانك انت يعني بتعمل عنده تخصص، فبيمسكك الشغل من اول يوم، وبتمسك مناوبات من اول يوم، وبتكون عليك مسؤوليه عن المرضى من اول يوم. فهذا بيخليك المسؤوليه اللي بتخليك تتعلم، وبتخليك انك تكون يعني حريص على انك تقرا اكثر وتتعلم اكثر وتسمع اكثر وتستفيد من اللي اكبر منك، ويعني تستفيد من الناس اللي حولك كلهم يعني. فصراحه كانت سنه جدا استفدت منها، واستفدت منها برضو في علاقات كثيره جدا كونتها مع ناس هناك، وقدرت ان انا امتحن فيها خلالها امتحاناتي اللي تمكنني اني اجي امريكا. فالامتحانات اللي تمكنك من انك تقدر تجي امريكا كخريج اجنبي او خريج من جامعه خارج امريكا هي 3 امتحانات، يعني زي ما تقول USMLE. USMLE هي عباره عن امتحان رخصه مزاوله المهنه الامريكيه. هو عده امتحانات، في امتحان يمتحنك على العلوم الاساسيه، وامتحان يمتحنك على العلوم الكلينيكيه، وامتحان يمتحنك على قدراتك مع المرضى يعني عملي. فهذا الامتحانات كما امتحنتها بيجيبوا لك شهاده اللي هي تعتبر انك انت عادلت، هذه هي اللي يسموها المعادله. فالحمد لله انا قدرت ان انا اخلص المعادله حقي في حدود سنه و3 شهور، وقدرت ان انا اجي اقدم على يعني التدريب اللي ما بعد كليه الطب. فالتدريب اللي بعد كليه الطب انت بتختار التخصص اللي تحبه وتقدم في جهه معينه انت بتقدم لها، فتقدم على 10 مستشفيات، 20 مستشفى، 30 مستشفى، 100 مستشفى، كم ما قدرت انت بتحاول انك تقدم. فالمستشفيات هذه بتشوف السي في تبعك، ولو هم يعني انترستد بينادوك عشان انهم يقابلوا معك ويشوفوا يعني هل هم يقدروا انهم يشتغلوا معك، هل انت انسان كويس، يعني الحاجات اللي مكتوبه في حقك السي في فعليا تنطبق عليك، ولا السي في حقك في مكان وانت في مكان. فالمقابلات هذه الميزه في هذه الحاجه اللي هي الماتش في الطب يعني معقد، واي حد من خارج المجال ما بيفهم ايش الفكره تبعه. يعني انت الان الاخ منذر مهندس خلص درس، يقدم بشهادته على اي شركه، يروح يقابل في الشركه، بعد اسبوع يردوا له يقولوا له انت يعني احنا حابينك تعال اشتغل عندنا. في الطب مش كذا. في الطب معك مستشفيات كثيره في كل امريكا، في مستشفيات داخل نيويورك سيتي، في مستشفيات في روتشستر وفي ويستشستر وفي اماكن يعني منعزله شويه مش في وسط المدينه. فلو سابوها بنفس الطريقه حق منذر، اللي حيصير انه يعني بطريقه الهندسه او التجاره او الاي تي، انه كل الناس حيتركزوا في المدينه، والمستشفيات اللي برا المدينه ما تلاقيش حد. عشان كذا بداوا هذا الماتش عباره عن ايش؟ انه كل المستشفيات اللي في امريكا بتقدم انها عندها مقاعد سنويه، فالمقاعد السنويه حدود 31 32 الف مقعد، وكل سنه بيزودوهم 500 600 مقعد يعني. فهذه المقاعد عباره عن ايش؟ في مختلف التخصصات، باطنيه، اطفال، جراحه، نساء ولاده، طب اسره، كل التخصصات. فالابليكنتس بيكون معك يعني 35 40 الف ابليكنت. ال 40 الف ابليكنت هذول بيتنافسوا على هذه المقاعد، وبتلاقي انه في اخر التنافس بيبقى في مثلا يعني 10,000 11,000 بني ادم ما حصل مقعد. فين بيروحوا هذول الناس؟ فاهمني؟ الفكره انه اغلبنا بيفكر انه فين يروح اغلب هذول الناس؟ انا هذول دكاتره يعني برضو خريجين جامعات. فهذه نسبه وتناسب. الناس اللي جايين من داخل امريكا، اللي يتخرج من كليه الطب في امريكا، قدر انه هو يخلص جامعه، قدر انه جامعه يعني بكالوريوس، باتشلرز اوف ساينس او باتشلرز اوف اي شيء، امتحن الامكات، وقدر انه هو يدخل على كليه طب في امريكا او في كاريبيان او في اي مكان، وقدر انه يخلص درجه. نسبه الناس اللي بيحصلوا مقاعد من الناس اللي هم خريجين امريكا، بخلاف النظر عن درجاتهم في هذه الامتحانات، بيكون 95%. الناس اللي جايين من برا امريكا نسبتهم كم؟ هذول الناس بيكون يعني احيانا يكون في عندهم deficiencies في السي في، من ناحيه انه هو خريج قديم. يعني الامريكيين ما بيحبوش الخريج القديم حتى لو كان عنده خبره في مجال او اي شيء، بيقول لك لا، لو اكثر من 5 سنوات احنا يعني بيصعبوا عليهم. بس هل هو مستحيل؟ مش مستحيل انه يحصل مقعد. فبتلاقي انه يعني الشروط هذه بتضيق على الناس اللي جايين من برا، بس هم محتاجين برضو الناس اللي جايين من برا، لان الجامعات الامريكيه سنويا بتخرج حدود 19,000 الى 20,000 طبيب في كل امريكا. فانت معك 31,000 32,000 مقعد، فمعك 11,000 مقعد انت محتاج تعبيهم من مكان، فمش يعني تجيبهم من فين؟ فهم يعني الحكومه الامريكيه بتدفع جامعات كليات الطب انها تخرج ناس اكثر سنويا، فهم بيحاولوا يزودوا هذا المقاعد كليه الطب، بس بنفس الوقت لا زال عندهم هذا العجز اللي هم بيجيبوه من برا، بيجيبوه من الهند، بيجيبوه من الصين، بيجيبوه من الدول العربيه. يعني المصريين ما شاء الله يعني مكتسحين في مجال الطب في امريكا، يعني جايين كثير. المصريين الاردنيين يعني كثير جدا ما تتخيلش. يعني انا مثلا هنا في امريكا من الناس اللي جايين كيمنيين معدودين بالاصابع، يعني اعرف اغلبيتهم اللي معايا يعني في نفس الجيل تبعي، اعرفهم اغلبهم. يعني واحد في ييل، واحد كان في اوهايو، ويعني واحد في كانساس، معدودين. بس تلاقي انه لما نتعرف على بعض زي ما انت قلت ان هذه AAYSP ميزتها ايش؟ انك تجمع البروفيشنالز يتعرفوا على بعض، يساعدوا بعض، لان هذه كلها كونكشنز. خلي بالك انه اغلب الناس هنا رغم ان الدرجات هنا في امريكا مش زي عندنا في اليمن مثلا والدول العربيه الوساطه هي كل حاجه. هنا لا، هنا كواليفيكيشن ووساطه ترفعك. يعني معك 2 كواليفايد بس في واحد عنده وساطه، الريكومنديشن بتلعب دور. فلما بتلاقي انه هو الناس يعني يتعرفوا على بعض و they get connected to each other، فانت تساعدني وانا اساعدك وانت تساعد صاحبي وانا اساعد صاحبك، بتلاقي ان الكل بيقدر انه هو يوصل. ف that's the way to penetrate the field. ف يعني my contact is there. اي حد من الجمهور اللي موجودين حاب انه هو يتواصل او يسال اي شيء على المجال، يعني feel free. My Facebook is there and you can share my email as well. يعني it's the same thing as my Facebook at yahoo.com. ف يعني ان شاء الله ارد على الناس اللي عندهم استفسارات، يعني سواء كانوا من الناس اللي خريجين من امريكا او الناس اللي يعني خريجين ثانويه او خريجين جامعه من امريكا وحابين ان هم يكملوا في هذا المجال وعندهم اي تساؤلات وانا اقدر اساعد فيها، اساعدهم. ناس يعني مقدمين على الماتش اللي انا تكلمت عليه يعني شايفين انه هو في يعني صعوبات. انا مريت بهذه الصعوبات. انا تخيل والله اول ما جيت ما اعرفش حد، ما اعرفش اطباء في امريكا، فمحتاج ان انا اكلم كل اصحابي اللي موجودين في امريكا، كل اهلي اللي موجودين في امريكا، كل الناس اللي موجودين في امريكا، عشان انا اقدر اوصل لفلان واوصل لفلان واوصل لفلان. بس انك تسالهم، يعني تسالهم انا ايش اسوي، ايش اللي انا ممكن اعمله، ايش اللي ممكن اسويه. ففكره انه بس يكون قدامك شخص اللي يقول لك اعمل وسوي، فهذه حاجه كبيره جدا. انا توفقت والحمد لله. كان في دكتور في ميشيغان يعني الصراحه الله يفتح عليه، ساعدني جدا، ساعدني وجاب لي مقابله عنده في المستشفى تبعه وراجع السي في تبعي وقال لي ايش اللي المفروض ان انا اعمله وايش اللي المفروض ما اعمله وايش اللي اسويه واللي ما اسويه. تعرفت على حد في UCSF عن طريق واحد من الاعضاء اللي عندكم، وليد حمود. وليد حمود عرفني على واحد ما تتخيلش، واحد يعني هو ما يعرفه، يعني يعرفه في المستشفى، يعرفه يعني معرفه سطحيه او يعني حاجه بسيطه. فانا تخيل وليد يعرف الشخص هذا الشخص انا رحت لعنده يعني ما يعرفني، باكستاني، بس بتتخيلش انت كميه الحاجات اللي قالها لي وعملها لي فوق ما تتصور. فعشان كذا اللي بقول لك انه الكونكشنز they play a big role. انت معاك الكواليفيكيشنز are very important and that's your part. Connections that's also your part and you have to reach out. ما فيش حد بيجي يقول لك تعال انا اوديك، لا، لازم انك you have to reach out, you have to reach out to everybody, it doesn't matter يعني. فربنا يسهل. انا اتكلم
شكرا
كثير
جزيلا.
يعني.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور مروان. طبعا كلامك قيم جدا وبيستفيد منها الكثير. بالنسبه للنصائح التي يقدمها الناس او الخبرات التي ممكن الواحد يستشير فيها، احنا في AAYSP صار لنا فتره تقريبا اشهر نعمل على برنامج mentorship program. يعني اذا تحب تطلب نصيحه من احد اليمنيين ذوي الخبرات في اي مجال، سواء دكتور، مهندس، محامي، ان شاء الله خلال الاسابيع القادمه او الايام القادمه سوف نطلق مشروع AAYSP mentoring program، وسوف يكون هناك ان شاء الله عشرات من المهنيين والمحترفين اليمنيين في امريكا، ويتسنى لاي شخص سواء كنت طالب في الجامعه او طالب في الثانويه او حتى شخص مبتدئ في مجالك المهني، تطلب موعد مع الشخص الذي تحب، سواء كان دكتور او مهندسه او محاميه، تطلب معهم الموعد، يحدد لك وقت زمني للاتصال معهم. فان شاء الله هذا خلال الايام القادمه، يعني نقول ان شاء الله next week we will launch this program and ensure that you have that access to people who have the expertise and the experience to consult you in the profession that you're seeking. So this is inshallah coming up soon, and this is a snapshot of the website that we're still developing. And I want to thank Muhammad Al-Mahbashi, who's been he played a pivotal role in launching this website. So stay tuned, and we will share that with you in the next few days. Now we can open up the door for questions. We have people in the Zoom room. Mundir, Muhammad Al-Riyashi, feel free to add in your comments, or if you want to elaborate a little bit with Dr. Marwan. And then those in the Zoom room, if you want to raise your hand so we can give you the mic, or if you just want to speak directly, you can go ahead. If you want to post your questions, I will make sure that I read them out loud. But please participate in the discussion and feel free to engage.
I can kick it off because I think a lot of people have the same question. طبعا الميديكال field is very rich and much more يعني أعمق حتى من الهندسة. And that's why maybe it's hard to put it in slides. Like you said, it's very hard to show like the exact path. There is so many paths. Unlike يعني مثلا engineering, it's more defined. There is this major, there is this category, and there is that category. بس نفرض إن معي مثلا kid right now or something وعادة في الهاي سكول، كيف يعني شفت نفسك رايح للميديكال field? How did you see yourself going into the medical field, and what did you focus and not focus on in your undergrad, because obviously that's the first step or milestone to cross after high school.
So يعني أنا كنت يعني زي ما تقول إيش من أول ما أنا اتخذت القرار إني أروح مصر، اتخذت قرار إن أنا أتخرج طبيب، لأنه في مصر you do it all as one shot. تبدأ من أول سنة أولى you're studying medicine، يعني بتبدأ تدرس طب من الأول. You don't do undergrad and then medical degree. It's all just one full degree. You end up spending about 8 years, so it's almost the same amount of time as you do if you're in the US and you know you're studying undergrad and then you're studying medical school. But فأنا من أول ما بدأت ركزت في الأشياء اللي يعني حتفيدني في لقدام. يعني لما when I study basic science, I have to find the application of this basic science to the clinical areas. فكيف إن أنا أعرف الحاجات هذه؟ إنك بتشوف أنت المراجع، بتشوف الفيديوهات. يعني العالم اليوم متاح بشكل خيالي، يعني العلم متاح بشكل خيالي. الطب ما تتخيلش أنت كيف everything is so accessible and so much information that you can find like this is insane. Being able to access these things is the thing that gives you an edge, gives you, be able to reach the goal that you want faster, quicker, and more efficient. يعني في طرق كثيرة جدا، ما صعب إن أنا أفصلها يعني، لأنها زي ما نقول تفاصيل مملة شوية، بس بتفيد الطلاب، يعني بتفيد الطالب. فهذه أعتقد أن يكون لها جلسة أخرى للناس اللي هم مهتمين بهذا الشيء، وإحنا نركز على المجال ككل. فزي ما قلت لك يعني في الآخر في أشياء كثير الواحد يقدر يركز عليها وهو في الدراسة نفسها، في خلال فترة الدراسة. بس أهم حاجة في فترة الدراسة هي أنك تحافظ على الاستمرارية. قليل دائم خير من كثير منقطع. هذا يعني القاعدة اللي كنا نمشي عليها.
استمرارية لمدة 8 سنوات.
ها؟
استمرارية لمدة 8 سنوات.
مش 8 سنوات. أنا بدأت كلية الطب سنة 2008 إلى اليوم وأنا أتعلم. باقي قدامي 3 سنوات علشان أن أنا أقول على نفسي دكتور أقدر أمارس. يعني
15 سنة.
هي رحلة طويلة، لكن هل كلها يعني كتاب وممل وكذا؟ لا. فعشان كذا أنا قلت لك إنه في طرق في كيف إنك تقدر إنك تخليها غير مملة، وتخليها يعني نوعا ما تشتغل، تتعلم، بتدرس، بتبني أسرة، بتعمل كل الأشياء هذه. فهذه ميزة الريزيدنسي، هي دراسة بس بنفس الوقت شغل. يعني أنا أشتغل في الأسبوع مثلا 80 ساعة، من 80 إلى 90 ساعة. فبرضو معايا دراسة، ومعايا يعني معايا امتحانات سنوية، معايا مذاكرة. بترتب وقتك وبتعمل اللي عليك.
I want to bring in Muhammad Al-Riyashi into the conversation, because Muhammad Al-Riyashi is about to finish his medical school, I think. Muhammad, are you with us?
Man.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm still with you guys.
Okay, so
he's going to ask all the hard questions now.
Yeah, what's your perspective right now, Muhammad? I think you're getting ready for residency. So what's your perspective in all this?
So right now it's during COVID, so I guess it makes things a lot more complicated than it should be. I'm in the process what he described, pretty much at my 4th year of medical school right now. So I'm in the interview process. So this is the unique year where I don't have to travel 13 states like you did, or 12 states. It's all in the virtual world, just like right now. So I guess there's a lot of cost saving factors that's come into play, which I guess you could say it's a great thing for those who want to apply this year. But overall, just about the medical field in general. So the route that I took, as you mentioned, is because I grew up here in the States. I decided I ended up doing my bachelor's degree in biochemistry. But instead of transitioning straight to medical school, I ended up deciding to do my master's degree because I didn't, because I wanted further more into the sciences, which also helped me out in medical school as well in terms of your first couple years. So there's many paths you can take. You could do your bachelor's and then decide to go to medical school, or if you want to even go beyond that and do a master's, the medical school, or there's programs where it's both medical MD and PhD program. Yeah. At the end of the day, it costs more years, so it's pretty much there's so many opportunities that you can take in that route.
There are so many ways. Something else is that even after, let's say you didn't match into residency, here in New York, I found something that is even, I was looking for something like that, where I can find a position where I can at least work in the medical field, even if it's not a residency training program. And that was impossible to find. But here I found positions in which you can be a house officer and you can practice, and at the same time be able to continue on your path, be able to apply for interviews, be able to, and you already have that clinical experience. But that's the problem. We don't have enough people in the field to be able to know these things early on. You only know them once you start knowing people that were doing this. How did you get that opportunity? Through my friend, through his friend, through his friend. And that's not something that we should take for granted. It's something that's huge, and we should use it.
Okay, awesome. We have a question in the chat. I'm gonna read it to you, Dr. Marwan. It's from Miriam Muhammad. She's saying, I'm quoting her text. I really enjoyed listening to you speak about your personal journey, especially how you focus on determination and dedication. I have a son who is a junior in high school, and I have brought up the topic about career choices so we can begin the education navigation. He was quite surprised when I told him the medical field is not limited to physicians and nurses. I believe that many young, inspiring students might be in the same boat as him. How do you recommend they begin to explore their options?
Well, Wallah, shuf, in high school, the best way is, it depends on what you enjoy the most. Personally, I enjoy science. I enjoy biology. I enjoy chemistry. I wasn't so much into physics. I was more into these kind of topics. I was more into the human physiology, the human anatomy. I enjoyed those things. Those things came very easy to me. So personally, I think you have to look for what comes easy to you. I work 80 hours a week. I don't feel like I work 80 hours a week. Why? Because I enjoy what I do. I go, I do a 12-hour shift, and I come home and I still have enough energy to read and to eat and to drink and to go out with my friends. Why? Because I enjoy what I do. I know it's very cliche, but if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life, and that's real. So the best way to navigate it is to find what he likes, whatever it is. Maybe he likes IT, maybe he likes engineering, maybe he likes mechanics, maybe he likes, there's a lot of different opportunities. And what she's saying is very true. The medical field is not just limited to the doctors and nurses. There's so much more. There are technicians that for example, we have a robot in our hospital, Da Vinci robot. It's used for operations. Basically, a surgeon uses a robot to do an operation in very small areas. So the robot has a technician. That technician makes more than any other nurse. How did he become to be that technician? It takes a lot of training, but still, it's not the regular nurse's job. Or there are cardiology interventional technicians, which basically the people that get the stents. Those are different type. That's a different type of profession. Radiologists, the people that do the ultrasounds, the echocardiograms for the heart. Those people, they train much shorter period of time and they're able to find these jobs, and they're very decent jobs. But in the end, and believe me, if you're looking for money, it's not the doctors that make the most money. It's the CEO, CFO, and COO of the hospital that make the most money. Yeah. But in the end, there's a lot in the medical field that, that you can do. There's a lot in terms of research, like, Dr. Muhammad Al-Riyashi is saying, he did his master's degree. He was very interested in biochemistry. So let's say that he was more interested in the field of research. He could have been into his PhD and then runs a lab and gets grants and does research and continues to do research. And there are people that do that. Just like my friend, I told you, the one that, as soon as he saw me in Egypt, he told me, what the hell are you doing in Egypt? Go to the US, study there, don't come to Egypt. I told him, this is the path I choose, and I'll just figure it out. My friend is now doing research and he's very successful and he enjoys what he's doing.
Okay, Mrouan, I think just Al-Ukht Maryam just something, what she's maybe getting at, and maybe that's my understanding, but do you figure out along the way those options, like becoming a cardiologist or like all these other professions, do you find them along the way, or do you kind of plan on them like from way early on, like from your first year or something?
So the best way, you can volunteer. Let's say you're interested in the medical field, volunteer at a local hospital, go look for these people, shadow a doctor, shadow a surgeon, shadow a technician, shadow a nurse, ask to shadow. I see volunteers at my hospital all the time. They come, they volunteer, they do the part of volunteering, and then they ask after you show that you're interested, you ask, can I please do this? And they will let you. Nobody's going to tell you no. Believe me, the US is one of the countries where you just have to ask. Once you ask, people will tell you, this is acceptable, this is not acceptable. And, there is no harm in asking.
Awesome. And we have another question from Bilal Muhsin. By the way, if you choose to speak, if you want to speak and participate, this is totally fine. So I will read this question from Bilal Muhsin, and then we'll take a question from Muhammad Al-Bashari, who has his hand raised. This question from Bilal Muhsin. I'm finishing up my prerequisites at Henry Community College. I think that's in Michigan, Muhammad. And I'm applying for colleges, inshallah, for fall 2021. Where would be a good university to study medicine?
I think I'm going to divert this question to my colleague, Dr. Muhammad Al-Riyashi. But,
yeah.
If I can just say one statement. Go ahead, Muhammad, go ahead. I'll say it at the end of what you say.
Yeah, so to answer that, just like how Dr. Aldi mentioned earlier on, it doesn't really matter where you go, what your degree is in. In the end of the day, applying to medical schools require these pre-med prerequisites. So as long as you fulfill that criteria specifically, you can get a degree in anything. And people say that, well, would you have a better chance getting in with the biology degree, for example? Well, no, not really, because I guess the percentage is kind of skewed, because of course you would see 60% of people in med school biology, because I guess that's what majority of people want to focus on. But I've seen people who did public health, nutrition, English, and got in. So to answer what would be a good school, I feel like it doesn't really matter which university you go into. Sure, there are some universities that have like a good name to it. They're probably you'll stand out more. And those are probably the top 10, top 15 universities in the state. So for example, in the state of Michigan, we have University of Michigan, which is #1 public university. So I guess if you apply from that university, sure, you may stand out more. But in the end of the day, I don't feel like it really matters where you go, especially since you went to Henry Ford. I feel like you can go to Wayne State. You can even go to U of M Dearborn. That would be all great to practice medicine. But if you want to shift it more of what's a good place to do research, like Lab Bench, to help you in the application process, I would pick a university specifically that gives you that ability to work in a lab. Actually, at that time, probably volunteer in the lab to help buff up your CV.
Want to add something, Dr. Mrouan?
Yeah, they always ask which one is the best surgery program, which one is the best medical school, which one is the best. You know what the best program is or the best school is? The one that takes you in. The one that takes you in, that's the best one.
Okay, so we can now take a question from محمد البشاري. أخ محمد البشاري أستاذ تفضل.
شكرا يا هشام. يا دكتور مروان، معي سؤال أو خلينا نقول سؤالين. السؤال الأول، إذا واحد خلص البكالوريوس مثلا وحب إنه يحصل الطب، هل البكالوريوس
صوتك بعيد يا محمد.
طيب الآن أحسن؟ أنا ماشي أصيح.
الآن أحسن، صيح.
طيب قلت لك إذا واحد خلص البكالوريوس وأحب إنه يحول لمجال الطب أو البحوث مثلا، هل الرحلة حقه حتكون أقل شوية ولا 6 أو 7 سنوات لازم يخلصها؟
والله شوف، الآن مثلا على حسب إيش الحاجات اللي أنت أخذتها في خلال البكالوريوس. فأنت لو أخذت حاجات لها علاقة بالطب and you class يعني you fulfilled those prerequisites before medical school، فتختصر على نفسك هذيك الفترة اللي أنت بتجهز فيها إنك تدخل فيها medical school. وبعدين في معك امتحان الإمكات. If you pass that with a good score, I think you're going to apply to medical schools وتدخل تعمل ال4 سنوات. يعني ما تقدرش تختصر من هذه ال4 سنوات حق medical school. يعني بعد ما تخلصها بتقدم على الماتش، بتختار تخصص المات. يعني بعد ما تقدم على الماتش أنت خلاص بتدخل على تخصص، يعني قدك تشتغل، مش إنك جالس عادك طالب، لا أنت تشتغل وملتزم وبتوقع عقد عمل وعليك التزامات وعليه يعني ولك حقوق. فبس في خلال فترة تدريبك هذه اللي أنت بتعمل فيها الريزيدنسي أو التخصص، يعني عليك امتحانات تعملها، عليك مذاكرة بتذاكرها، عليك يعني حاجات معينة بتعملها، بحيث إنك بقى في نهاية فترتك لما تخلص بتروح تمتحن امتحان اللي بيجيب لك الشهادة النهائية لأنك أنت تخصصت في التخصص الفلاني، بحيث أنك تقدر تخرج تمارس يعني independent. يعني تقدر أنك تروح تقدم على أي وظيفة في أي مكان في أمريكا، في أي مكان في الدنيا، وخلاص أنت كملت التدريس والتدريب حقك and you're ready for the world. فيعني تقدر من أي تخصص. أنا قابلت ناس كانوا chairman، يعني رئيس قسم الجراحة، والتخصص حقه في الباتشلرز كان هيستوري. قلت له كيف سويت؟ يعني ايش اللي حولك من تاريخ الى طب وجراحه اورام ومش عارف ايش؟ فيقول لك انه I was interested. كان في عندي يعني ناس ثانيين في الاسره كانوا دكاتره وكذا، فكانوا يشوفوا لي ان انا عمري ما بدخلش الطب يعني. وفي الاخر شفت ان المجال يعني حلو وعجبني، اذا قدمت وعملت الحاجه المطلوبه وقدم ونجح. فما ما لها طريق واحد. هذا الخلاصة. يعني ما فيش لها طريق واحد، في 20,000 طريق. أنت بس تختار الطريق الذي بيناسبك وتعمل الحاجة اللي عليك وتمشي قدام. ما تقدر تفكر أنا بحصل شغل ولا ما بحصلش، أنا بحصل وظيفة، اسعى يا عبدي وأنا أسعى معك.
جميل. طيب معي سؤال ثاني لو سمحت لي. بالنسبة لليمنيين اللي في اليمن، الذي هم مثلا كملوا دراسة الطب وما إلى ذلك في اليمن، واليمنيين اللي هذا أيضا اللي حابين أنهم يدرسوا الطب، أنا بكلمك عارف أن الموجودين الآن مش كثير، لكن حيشوفوا البث في الفيسبوك اليوم وبكرة وبعده، خليه يكون توثيقي يعني. هل تنصحهم أنهم يشتغلوا هنا بحكم أنك ذكرت أولا أن المنافسة مشتعلة؟ هل في دول أخرى مثلا تنصح أنهم يروحوا هيكون فيها السوق ما زال بيقبل أطباء كثير واللغة إنجليزية؟
والله شوف، للأسف أقول لك على حاجة، التخصصات كلها زيها زي التجارة. كل ما زاد عدد السكان في العالم كل ما زادت المنافسة ما بتقلش في كل مكان. يعني زملائي الذي بيروحوا ألمانيا برضو بيعانوا، زملائنا الذي بيروحوا بريطانيا بيعانوا. بس في يعني أنت في الآخر بتعمل الذي عليك، ما لكش دخل أنت بالمنافسة. أنت تعمل الذي عليك تذاكر، عليك تعمل بحث، تعمل عليك تشارك في أنشطة زي ما الآن مثلا الأخ الرياشي يعني بيشارك في حاجة زي AAYSP. This is community involvement. يعني إنه يعني يضحي بوقته من أجل المجتمع اللي حوله، من أجل إنه يساعد الناس. هذه الحاجة بتحسب لك. حكاية إنك تروح تتطوع بتحسب لك. حكاية إنك تشارك في يعني في ورقة بحثية وتنشرها تساعدك. فما لهاش قانون واحد يعني. بس هل في دول أسهل من أمريكا؟ أكيد. أمريكا أنا أعتقد أنها يعني قدي أصعب طريق، لأنها أنت تتخيل الامتحانات اللي أنا بنقول لك عليها، الامتحان الواحد 8 ساعات. يعني الامتحان الأول 8 ساعات، الامتحان الثاني 9 ساعات، الامتحان الثالث 8 ساعات، الامتحان الرابع يومين 17 ساعة. فهذا كله عشان أنك تحصل إجازة أنك تروح يعني تبقى شيخ مفتي في مستشفى أمريكي. يعني بس هل الامتحان صعب؟ والله ما هو صعب. ايش الاصعب؟ المذاكره والصبر وانك تجلس تذاكر. الامتحان احلى حاجه انك خلاص انت عارف انك بعد الامتحان هذا خلصت، يعني تخلص.
كويس كويس. طيب في معنا الاخ
تعقيبا بس انا سريع كنت اعقب على السؤال اللي ساله محمد البشاري. You mentioned earlier, Dr. Morowan, there is 32,000 seats a year. What are you referring to, the residency seats?
Residency positions.
Every year in the US, okay.
Yeah.
And the residency, يعني basically you can just get hired automatically in any hospital you choose, or there is also
no, it's all a filtration process. Like I told you, no matter how good you are, no matter how perfect your scores are, how perfect your CV is, you compete. Each hospital will create a rank list. They will interview for my hospital has 3 positions for surgery. So in those 3 positions, we get from 600 up to 1,000 applications. They choose to interview 60 to 80 people. From those 60 to 80 people, every one of them will be on that list. Those 60 to 80 people will also go to different hospitals, and they will interview in those different hospitals. And everybody will just, put their list, and then all of that data is, is just fed into a computer, and that computer matches and mixes everybody to different hospitals all over the US. And the reason I mentioned it earlier, السبب انهم بدأوا هذا الشيء لانه كانوا الناس اللي عندهم good connections يحصلوا الوظائف الكويسة في المستشفيات الكويسة في داخل المدن، ويبقى الأماكن اللي خارج المدن الرئيسية ما فيش فيها residents يغطوها. فكيف إن هم يوازنوا الحكاية؟ عملوا هذا الشيء. حتى إنه الشخص اللي اخترع الألغوريثمية اللي تعمل الماتش اللي هو كان ناش، في عليه فيلم اللي جنن وحصل نوبل برايز في 94. فيعني عالم حصل نوبل برايز علشان انه يخترع اللوغاريتميه اللي بيعملوا فيها الميكس الماتش حق تخصص الطب.
amazing. طيب في معنا الاخ هشام in the Zoom room has his hand raised. Go ahead Hisham, ask the question please.
السلام عليكم، مشكورين جدا يا شباب. دكتور محمد، دكتور العودي، هشام، منذر، الجميع. فيها أنا مقدم على جامعة كلية الطب، وإن شاء الله I'm expecting interview soon إن شاء الله. So do you have experience with the MMI format for the medical school, for Stanford medical school?
والله أنا شخصياً ما فيش عندي، بس الأخ محمد الرياشي إذا عنده حاجة يقولها يتفضل.
I don't.
What's MMI? What does it stand for?
So it's, I think the interview consists of 10 8-minute station. So it's minimum, I think. So they have.
You're applying to enter into a medical school. Is this what?
Yeah.
So you finish your pre-med. You're applying into a medical school at Stanford.
Yeah.
And there's an examination called MMI, or what is it exactly?
It's like interview, but they have a format, MMI.
Okay.
They have different type of interview.
والله شوف يا أخ هشام. In residency interviews, I interviewed in a lot of places, and usually it doesn't go out of the common things. You have the common questions: what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your goals? Why should we pick you? Why did you pick us? All of these questions. These are the most common questions. After that, there is usually like how can I say it? They give you scenarios. And basically, it's just to see your personality and how you react, your interpersonal skills, how you react to certain situations, and what will you do in those certain situations. Those situations are not, not necessarily real. I'll give you an example. I was asked in one of my interviews, you told the nurse, a patient very sick comes into the hospital, goes into the ICU, into the critical care, and then once they're in the ICU, the patient is agitated, very aggressive, and the nurse just takes a certain medication and gives it without, informing you. Once you go to the ICU and she goes and tells you, hey, the patient was agitated, I gave him that medication, can you please write the order? What will you do? فهمني؟ that kind of question is more to see how will you deal with it. Are you going to go yell at the nurse and say it's your fault? Why did you do this to the patient? Are you going to say, okay, this should not happen again? You know, you can't just give patients medications without me seeing the patient. فهي الفكرة في إنه إيش they assess how is your personality, what would be your response to situations that are going to happen during your work in the hospital. That's for the hospital. For the interview process for medical school, I don't really have a lot of experience in it because I didn't apply to medical school in the US.
How was your experience, Mohammed Al-Riyashi? Was there anything in particular from your experience when you applied to medical school that stands out in your interviews?
No, it's very similar for right now when applying to residency. That for the MMI, that started after I did my interviews for medical school. I've heard that some hospitals started implementing it. From what I've just heard is that instead of the traditional get interviewed twice, 30 minutes each or 20 minutes each, now they want to do 10 mini interviews where each one assesses different type of skills. So instead of just asking you repeatedly why you're interested in medicine, what really pushed you into the field, give you some strength and benefits, et cetera, some of them may give you some sort of scenarios, just like Dr. Aoudi mentioned, and what would you do in that situation? But like the interview for medical school, from what I did is, it's very similar. It's just the very typical questions you see online. Why medicine? What are you interested in it, et cetera.
Thank you.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. And just Dr. Mrouane, during your discussion, you talked about Yemeni doctors and how many do we have in the U.S. Not that many that that are in medical schools. I think right now, by just a rough estimate, maybe we have tens of doctors, Yemeni medical doctors in the US. عشرات يعني ما أعتقد يوصلوا ل100. في كثير من الصيدليين من أبناء الجالية دخلوا في مجال الصيدلة. We do see them randomly. We come across as a professional organization, but they're usually, maybe because of this filtration system, they're usually scattered in every state, and states that are not necessarily populated by a large amount of Yemeni American community. So like I met random people in different states. I'm sure you know a few of them, but inshallah we can build that network so we can make that available to those who aspire to be doctors.
100%. That will be a very good network. Believe me, كل الجاليات الثانية عندهم this network. كلها. يعني I have Jordanian friends, I have Lebanese friends, I have Egyptian friends, and everybody has networks. Everybody. Indians, best networks. Indians are the best networks. 25% of medical professionals in the US are Indian. That's huge.
Indian only or Indian and Pakistan?
Indians.
Only. Oh wow. Okay.
25%.
There's a good percentage of I think Pakistani as well, right?
Yeah, there is. But people coming from India, 25%. That's huge.
Yes, yeah.
One country.
Okay, I want to give one last chance to those in the room if they want to ask any last-minute questions, and then we can wrap it up. We can maybe end it with maybe any closing remarks from Munder if he has any final comments, from his side, or Mohammed Al-Riyashi, and then we'll have you, Dr. Mrouane, kind of end it on a nice note. Give people some good hope that this medical profession, though it's a long journey and it takes a lot of sacrifice, but inshallah it's very rewarding. And maybe you want to give a couple of minutes about your experience right now fighting COVID-19, being in the front lines. I'm sure that has given you a different perspective of this profession, the value that it comes with, the responsibility, and the satisfaction that you get as somebody working and saving lives. I think I don't see any questions, so if there's any comments from Munder or Mohammed, or we can close up with you, Dr. Mrouane.
I visited Dr. Mrouane about 2 months ago, and he had a very unique, obviously with the pandemic, the whole pandemic situation is very unique for everyone. And it's also very hard in a sense. Dr. Mrouane, he shared few hard experiences that kind of, pulled him back. And he was, maybe your first patient that, I don't know how to best put it, but, they couldn't make it, for instance. So I just want Dr. Marwan to, maybe be, talking about the pandemic and this stuff. This is like a real difficult time for everyone. So was there, I don't mean to ask the question right now, but once you get to your segment, maybe you mentioned these hard times that maybe a doctor can, or a medical student would come across. And, to some extent, some of them would just completely quit and leave the profession. And maybe, seeing how many deaths that happened during this, unfortunate to any time since March, that might, push away a lot of students trying to pursue this field and major. So, during your concluding of this segment and mentioning the pandemic and talking about these hard times, I just wanted to hear some of those stories. What do you advise people to how to cope with it and overcome it? That's it.
I think when they're humans, generally, we have a tendency to stand up to challenges, and that's why we reach where we are today. I don't think that COVID pandemic will push people away from medicine. I think it will push people towards medicine, to be able to find cures, to be able to find things like that. Just like when there are wars, you find more people want to become fighters, want to become pilots, want to become, Marines, want to become all of those things. When there is sports, people want to become better and, more competitions and stuff like that. And that's what I think, things like COVID would do. Personally, as I told you, أنا تخصصي جراحة. جراحة is supposed to be جراحة, not related to COVID. But في خلال فترة COVID وقفنا العمليات, and our colleagues from the medical residency and the medical part of the hospital needed help. Some of them got sick, and during that time we had to, help them out. And basically we had to take care of COVID patients. And I can tell you, you see in Hollywood when there is like a war scene and there is like a hospital or infirmary where a lot of patients come in and a lot of patients are amputated, a lot of patients are out, or a lot of patients are dead. I can tell you that it was a very similar picture. You walk into an emergency department with that normal capacity should be around 30 to 50 patients, having 80, 100 patients, and half of them are already like dying or having tubes down their throats to help them with the breathing, or it was just crazy. It was very crazy. I never had to write as many death certificates as I did during the 2 months I worked with COVID patients. It was just at some point you just feel weak and helpless. You try to help people, but you can't help them. We go into this profession wanting to help people, relieve their suffering, help them get better, help them get well, help them go back to their families, to their normal lives. And when you end up not being able to do it, and and we are still at that point. By the way, we don't have any magical treatment for COVID yet. There are some vaccines, and we're hoping that the preliminary results of these vaccines will give effect as the studies are showing. And personally, in my hospital, they're going to start vaccinating us by next week for COVID, for people that are elderly, people with medical problems, and for healthcare staff. Then they will start, after they finish this, this group, they will start giving to the rest of the population. Personally, I think people should take the vaccine. We don't know what the long-term effect of the vaccine is. Maybe it will have effects after 5 years, after 10 years. You don't know what the effects are, but we sure know what the effects of COVID now are. If you get COVID and you end up being one of those unfortunate people that even though they were healthy and they were not sick and they would not have medical comorbidities or anything, ended up very sick or dying or having a lifestyle that's even worse than dying. I see patients with the effects of COVID. They can't breathe on their own. They're still on mechanical ventilators until this day. They have problems related to COVID in terms of like strokes. How COVID makes the blood clot a lot. So they ended up with strokes, paralyzed. Patients got problems in their bowels. Patients got, a lot of, problems that ended up, that you just see and you just feel so sad that someone gets sick for a week or 2 weeks and ends up with a problem and a disability for life. That's why, a lot of people have been asking me about the vaccines, and I think that people should just take it. If they have a chance to take the vaccine, they should take it. We don't know what the long-term effects of it are, but we sure know what the short-term effects of it. Short-term effects is that it's protective in the majority of people, and that if the people get sick, even if they get sick, they wouldn't get the very severe form of the sickness, which will end up with them being, you know, disabled or dead.
Great, thank you very much, Dr. Marwan. Usually I like to end on time, but this is a very special topic that concerns our lives and the lives of many across the world. So it's okay to go over by a few more minutes, and I want you to conclude in Arabic actually. نصيحة تقدمها للجالية اليمنية خصوصا في أمريكا، يعني لأنه أكثر الأودينس الذي حيتابع هذا الفيديو أو هذا المنشور خلال الأيام القادمة يعني أكثرهم في أمريكا، وإن كان يمكن أي يمني أو عربي يشاهد هذا البث. نصيحتك يعني هل مدى جدية المرض هذا، الاحتياطات، الاحترازات، اتباع القوانين أو اتباع الإرشادات الطبية من مصلحة الأمراض الوبائية، نصائحك للجالية وأهمية اتباع الإرشادات؟
والله ينصحهم كلهم انهم يلتزموا بالتباعد، يلتزموا بالماسك، يلتزموا بنظافة اليدات، يعني يلتزموا بالنصائح الذي كل شوية تطلع من CDC. يعني CDC والحكومة نفسها بيحاولوا انهم يتجنبوا هذه الاشياء، وحتى يعني تحاول انك تخلي نفسك حريص على نفسك اكثر من الحكومة. يعني مش بالضرورة انك تستنى لحد ما يقولوا لك لا خلاص، فاهمني، ما فيش حد يخرج من البيت، ما فيش حد، لا يعني يخرج للبيت للضرورات، اجتمع مع الناس يعني ما تجتمعش انتوا عرس ولا تخزينه ولا، هذا حاجه غلط الصراحه. يعني اخرك اجتمع انتوا 2-3 انفار وكل واحد جالس في مكان، مش مشكله، بس لما يتجمعوا الناس ويعملوا كذا. يعني قبل فتره كان في عرس في ولايه مجاوره وروحوا من العرس 30-40 واحد مريضين كورونا، فاهمني، فهذا مش صح. الشيء الثاني اللي تكلمنا عليه هو التطعيم. التطعيم بدأ يطلع وفي كلام كثير كويس على التطعيم، في أكثر من تطعيم، بس التطعيم الذي يعني لسه ما اعتمدته CDC ولا FDA، بس يعني في عليه نتائج كويسة ومصنوع هنا في أمريكا، وأعتقد يعني يعني في المستشفيات الموجودة عندنا ما بيعرضوا على الطاقم الطبي وعلى المرضى إنهم يطعموا، وهو يعني مش فعال. فهو فعال، لكن الآثار الجانبية تبعه على المدى الطويل لسه مش عارفينها. لكن هل خطر الكورونا أكثر من خطر يعني اللي إحنا مش عارفينه يحصل بعد 10 سنين 20 سنة؟ أعتقد خطر كورونا أكبر. فإذا عندنا فرصة إن إحنا نقضي على كورونا، ويعني إحنا في الأول كانوا يقولوا هي شهر، شهرين، 3، الآن سنة، سنتين، 3، مش عارفين هذا نهايته فين، فاهمني؟ كل شوية وبدأ يرجع، كل شوية وبدأ يرجع. تلاقي مريض كان عنده الكورونا قبل 6 شهور ولا زال الكورونا عنده لحد الآن. يعني مش المرض، يعني ما عندهاش الأعراض، بس الفيروس نفسه لسه موجود عنده. فالشخص هذا قادر إنه يعدي الناس، ف6 شهور ولسه قادر إنه يعدي الناس، فحاجة مخيفة. فالمشكلة إنه يعدي ناس صحيحين ما يمكن ما يحصل لهمش حاجة، بس بيعدي ناس بعدين ثانيين اللي بيموتوا من المرض.
شكرا جزيلا دكتور مروان. طبعا في ختام هذا البث او هذه الحلقه اليوم، نحب نشكر كل المشاركين في الزوم او سواء المتابعين عبر الفيسبوك. I want to thank اشكر الاخ منذر جابر للتواصل مع الدكتور مروان وتجهيز هذا البث المباشر معه. اشكر الدكتور محمد الرياش ان شاء الله دكتور المستقبل من اداره AAYSP لانضمامه لهذه الحلقه. I want to thank everyone for joining us, watching this video live or later on Facebook or on YouTube. We will upload it on YouTube. If you have any further questions to Dr. Mrouan Al-Aoudi, we have his profile posted on Facebook. You can read a lot more about his background following our Professional of the Month. You can visit our website, AAYSP.org. And again, I want to thank you for joining us, and we will have to end it here. Thank you, Dr. Mrouan Al-Aoudi, again, for joining us and for your valuable time. And we wish you the best of luck to becoming a top surgeon in the United States. Thank you very much.
حبيبي شكرا جزيلا على الاستضافة، وتحياتي للجمهور. وزي ما أنت قلت يعني البروفايل كله موجود، واللي عنده أي استفسار يعني ريتش اوت.
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا.
يلا thank you everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.